Hi, everybody. I'd like to talk to you about my 12 gates theory on personality typing. And what are the 12 gates? Well, 12 gates is a biblical reference to these different passageways or entrances to our inner being, starting with the gates that relate to the physical body, gates that affect the soul, which is our personalities, that reside in our bodies, and then spirit, which is these gates that allow God's spirit or spirits to enter into us, our souls as well. And so you see that outlined here. I just drew a little sketch of the ESFP personality. The ESFP personality is a sensor type personality. They're SE dominant and FI tool is their signature trait. They are the polar opposite of the INFJ, meaning that there's some attraction and also repulsion between the two. It's like at first everything seems great, but then over time there's different tensions there that arise because they're just different personality styles, and they contrast as well as complement each other at times. And so I'm doing what I call a type comparison here, which is to look at other personality types, not just my own, and to try to look at the person, not the personality of the person I'm talking to, because your personality are just your tendencies and your nature, where you tend to focus most of your attention most of the time. But beneath that, you have a spirit. You're a spiritual being, meaning that you are more than your personality. Your true identity is not in your personality. Your true identity is within your innermost being, and so that would be your spirit. But most of us don't know ourselves, and because we don't really, our spirit within us is dormant and not really been awakened to God or to the spiritual world. We are unaware of the things that affect and influence us the most, are not based solely on our own tendencies. And so the 12 gates is, if you count them, spiritually there's 4 gates, and the 4 gates are represented in the Bible by the 4 rivers that flowed into the Garden of Eden. So when you look at that up, you'll see that it was the Euphrates, the Gihon, the Tigris, and the Pishon rivers were the rivers that flowed into the Garden of Eden in the biblical Garden of Adam and Eve. So you see that there's different levels of understanding, different levels of growth, and different levels of awareness, because spiritually God put his knowledge of himself in every human being. But not every human being is spiritually awakened or aware of that knowledge of God's Spirit that resides within them. And so the Bible is a witness to the Spirit of God that's within each of us. When you read the Bible, its purpose is to help enlighten us or to awaken our spirits to the knowledge of God that's all within each of us. God put in each of us as he put his own spirit, his seed, you might say. In each of us, there's a germane seed of this knowledge. It's in every human being. Even atheists have the same knowledge, because God is Christ is a witness of, but God the Father is also a witness through creation. In the beginning, from the foundations of the world, when he made the Garden of Eden, God was a witness to creation and said that it was all good, it was all perfect, as God made it and as God intended it to be. And so let's look at these 4 gates, but then there's 4 gates of the soul as well. Through our soul nature, we're able to assert this soul force, which is our own will on our lives, and that's where our tendencies and inclinations are, is how our own inclinations and wills operate. Now, what a lot of people don't know is even when we are dominant function and tertiary function, even though these are strong cognitive functions, not all of us are, most of us suppress our dominant functions. So if you're in dominant function, for example, mine is intuition. A lot of INFJs and dominant intuitive people suppress their intuition. These are areas in their soul that's not really been illuminated. And so they're, even though they have certain inclinations, their inclinations have been diverted somewhat from knowledge of God, knowledge of His Spirit, and how God's Spirit works in us. And so this would apply as well to the ESFP. They're a sensor type, but they don't. But many are suppressed in these areas of their strengths and their personalities, because spiritually they're not aware or awakened to this knowledge, spiritual knowledge that I'm talking about. And then within the body, there's gates. There are things we allow in our bodies that affect our health and our well-being, and also affects our spiritual growth. So we give place to certain kinds of feelings and thoughts that are not, and certain conditioning, and that's what causes us to be limited in our imagination and potential, that what we may be able to achieve. And so growth is in all these three areas: body, mind, and spirit. There's areas and rooms for growth. Now, when you're trying to, I mentioned in a previous video that there's a degree of antipathy towards people. Their sensors have towards intuitives, and intuitives have toward sensors. And when you're trying to help somebody that's not, you really have to look past your antipathy you may have towards their personality, and try to see the larger picture, which is they have God, knowledge of God. It's been sowed in their hearts as in yours, and they've not been awakened to certain things in their own soul, personality, and mind. And so rather than trying to mold them and make them like you are, and try to mold their inclinations to be more like your own, for example, trying to make a sensor more intuitive or something like that, that's a waste of time. They need to utilize their personality as God gave them a personality, and utilize their inclinations. They need to awaken to these areas of within their soul. And so if you have spiritual knowledge, you can help illuminate those parts of them, okay, of themselves, so they can see things for themselves, not because you pointed things out. It's not what you point out to them, it's what you show them. It's not what you know, it's what you show that makes a difference in other people's lives. We'll talk more about this later.